My first ever Dhavanagiri Bindi Dosai has arrived. Thanks to Krishnappa ji who has got it home for me. Offered it already to Linga Bhairavi. Apart from all the other things that I had brought from home, the bananas, the tender coconuts, the oranges, the Nendrangha bananas, and the Mantra Pushpam. We'll hear that in a few future videos. But now is the time to eat the hot benne dosai. The benne, alugade, and chutney are all inside. ॐ अन्नपूर्णे सदा पूर्णे शङ्कर प्राणवल्लभे ज्ञानवैराग्यसिद्ध्यर्थं भिक्षां देहि च पार्वती माता च पार्वती देवी पिता देवो महेश्वरः बान्धवा शिवभक्ताश्च स्वदेशो भुवनत्रयम् ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ ब्रह्मार्पणं ब्रह्महविः ब्रह्माग्नौ ब्रह्मणाहुतं ब्रह्मैव तेन गन्तव्यं ब्रह्मकर्म समाधिना. Jai Hind, folks. As you know, the previous FAQ was about food, in particular for spiritual sadhaks. I did it on the run, or rather the drive. Many people found it very beneficial, but they said that all 13 minutes was not sufficient for that. To see what was missing there, and I asked some of the people who responded, they indicated to me that it was essentially the positives. I had told about what could lead to slowing down the spiritual life, like non-vegetarian food, onions, garlic, asafoetida, green chilies, red chilies. I had not mentioned intoxicants, of course. Those are also in the negative list, be it alcohol, drugs, let's say smoking, etc., even coffee, all these addictive substances. But people are more interested to know, okay, fine, those are all to be relinquished or at least minimized if people are not able to relinquish it all of a sudden. Many seekers would like to know what then to have rather than not have. As I hinted and indicated in the previous episode itself, there's a lot that Mother Nature bountifully offers us. Currently in a farm, I see so much growing around me, which is all Satwik in nature, which essentially means that you can enhance your Satwik qualities by consuming them. And the best of them all is ash gourd, which is Vellapusnika as we call it, white pumpkin. And for that matter, most vegetables and fruits that you see that I have brought as offering to Linga Bhairavi Pratishta over here by Mitaji. These fruits, especially when offered and consecrated, get far more energized and are able to reduce your tamasic and rajasic gunas, the lethargy and the passions, and move it up towards purity, so that eventually you can transcend all the qualities, all the three types of qualities rather. Apart from fruits, dry fruits, nuts, I have quite a few of them here. Dairy products, especially if it's from the A2 cow, the A2 milk, even better the A2 curds, even better the A2 butter, and the best of all, A2 ghee. That is ghee made out of A2 milk. That's the Indian cows with the hump at the back. All of these again are experimental results of the seers. Many great rishis have experimented with it. I have done it too. Found that there is an amazing effect when you have them. Ghee in particular, if you can gargle with it just before your food, especially when you're eating your spicy foods. Again, spices to be avoided, but even if you're not eating spicy food, still it's a wonderful lubricant, and it's one of the greatest preservatives other than honey.
Honey and ghee are some of the best preservatives known to human beings, natural preservatives which can retain some foods for years, if not decades. In fact, some of these ghees and honey are buried under earth in some parts of the country, including Kerala. When it's extracted after a few decades, you find it far more effective as well. But in any case, apart from these, the more important thing that I would like to point out today is that it's not all about food over here. By the way, before I jump on to this more important thing, the ghee that I talked about, the gargling, is essentially like oil pulling. Oil pulling was a fad for a long period of time, but if you do ghee pulling, which is essentially clarified butter in your mouth and gargling with it, not very large quantities, say a spoonful of ghee before every meal, especially warm meals that you're taking. If you can just gargle with it, heat it up slightly to little above room temperature. All foods for that matter, if they are about 2 degrees around the room temperature, is most conducive for spiritual growth. If not possible, people who like it much colder or much hotter, about plus or minus 4 degrees around the room temperature that you have. We being warm-blooded animals, unless we have a fever or some other medical issues, we maintain a constant temperature, irrespective of the outer temperature, the room temperature, the seasonal temperatures, the weather, etc. We maintain a constant temperature. It's good to not go to the extremes in terms of very cold food or very hot food. I know many people are into these habits, but habits are things that we have cultivated, and we can overcome them too if we are patient enough. Not do things drastically, but gradually you can reduce and get back to the normals. And the normal is about plus or minus 4 degrees centigrade around the room temperature. That really helps. So you can gargle with that and then go ahead with the rest of the food. But the more important thing that I wanted to get the message over to you is that as we get more and more spiritually inclined, the dependence of the body, mind, and intellect on food reduces, even the body, because we tend to extract the energy that we require and all the nutrients that we require by processing other subtler forms of inputs that we take. I already mentioned the inputs through the sense organs in the previous episodes, so I'll not go into that, and also through the mind and the intellect. But fresh air, then you have water, then you have sunlight. So these are things that right at the physical body level itself, and of course at the emotional mind and intellectual thought process as well, can dramatically enhance your ojas, tejas and prana. See, that's essentially what you're doing through this whole process of looking at food in all its dimensions, not just the food that we eat, but the food that we drink, smell, taste, see, hear, and think and emote with, and all these natural things that we are exposed to, like the water we drink, the other things that we drink, and also the light that we are exposed to. The lesser the artificial lights that we are exposed to, the better. We can't avoid it, of course, in modern context, but at least you can use those lights which are closer to the sunrise color temperature, lower the temperature, typically like about, let's say, 2000, 3000 Kelvin, at temperatures closer to that of the sunrise. And so these are yellowish kind of lights that you would be familiar with from ancient days. You slowly replace them with more bluish lights, which are very high temperature, color temperatures, like 5000, 6000, even higher. Those are quite bad, not only for your eyes, but overall physical health, emotional health, intellectual health, as well as, of course, the energetics that are involved with you. So I would suggest that you use more of these lower color temperatures, if you could replace your bulbs and things like that. The other thing that you could do is to expose yourself to sunrise, for example, I wake at about 3 o'clock, so I can expose myself to the sunrise outside in this farm. Well before the sun rises, you rise. and that's to get the best advantage. And you have fresh air and fresh water wherever it's available and feasible. And these are things that can dramatically help you too. Even physically, if you look at it, all foods are made out of molecules, and all molecules, irrespective of which molecule out of the thousands of molecules that are possible, every molecule is made out of an atom or set of atoms. The atoms in turn are made out of protons, electrons, and neutrons, which in turn are made out of subatomic particles. So eventually, irrespective of which food you eat, what you're consuming is protons, electrons, and neutrons, and or their subatomic particles, right? So why is it that one food makes so much of difference over the other? It's essentially our processing capability. Our processing capabilities over a period of time have reduced so much that only in certain forms we are able to accept it. We are going for more and more highly processed synthetic foods, which is what is causing all the damage at all dimensions, be it the body, mind, or intellect. Huge damages are being caused, of course, to the energetics. Instead of depending on these processed foods, if you can slowly go to the basics. Yes, first go to fruits and vegetables, nuts and leaves, wonderful things to start the day with. And I already mentioned ghee, etc. And then you go beyond that to see if you can sustain yourself on just water. So just with water you can survive, and then you can give up water too on Nirjala Ekadashis and survive with just the air that you breathe. So whether it is the food that you eat, the water that you drink, or the air that you breathe, they're all made out of the same protons, electrons, right? So is your body capable of taking that and arriving at the same result in terms of what it requires, either in terms of nutrients and or in terms of the energy levels? Is it able to then streamline your thought process in the intellect and the emotions in the mind, psychological drama that goes on? Yes, you would see that really is possible. And I'm saying this not just from my listening to great saints and being with them, but experiments on myself. And I have known for the last 2 years that I've been fasting every Ekadashi for 42 hours. And in the initial stages, many of the days I used to go even without water, and it's fantastic. You can just get it from air and sunlight, what you can get from water and food. It's just a question of developing your capabilities. Is your factory good enough to convert air and sunlight into what you need, just like it converts the other thing? Don't try out these things on a complete jump from whatever you're doing right now. Go to it gradually, drop off. To start with non-veg, then you can drop off onions and garlic, then you can drop off spicy food, overly spicy food, especially green chilies, red chilies, drop off intoxicants that you might be consuming, all the way from the hard drugs, backstreet drugs, all the way to what might seem so innocuous as coffee and tea. If you have to drink tea, go for green tea, flowers that you can use to have same kind of aroma, even better, I would say, compared to tea. Then you can do one day fasting whenever you can, preferably Ekadashis, which is once a fortnight, so twice a month. So if you can do that, it really helps, because whatever you do on Ekadashi, the effect typically for what you consume is about 4 days later, especially on the mind. 4 days after Ekadashi is always either a new moon or a full moon, which is Amavasya or Paurnami, and that's when the psychological waves take a huge tsunami-like shape. The weaker our minds are psychologically, the more we get affected. And so fasting 4 days before that does wonders in terms of how your behavior, even on an Amavasya, is. These are actually such wonderful tools. They're double-edged swords. You can either use them or misuse them. When you utilize them, it could be for jnana on Amavasyas, new moon days, and bhakti on full moon days, Paurnamis. That is, jnana is knowledge, wisdom, the awareness of the truth. Of course, it starts off intellectually, but at deeper levels. Bhakti is, of course, devotion. Many people think of it as a devotion to a god somewhere. No, it is to whatever the situation you are in, what you are supposed to respond with. Are you duty conscious about it? Are you devoted to what you're doing? Whether it is outer success or inner success entirely depends on this devotion or bhakti. So you treat that situation as your god, your Ishtadevta. You treat that job that you are in, task that you're doing currently as your Devata. And we have been taught this through our festivals like Ayudha Puja, Vishwakarma Jayanti, for example, where we celebrate our various tasks, various professions, various tools, and we see that all of these are indeed the real gods that we can perceive right here and now. Because unless and until you perceive something here and now, it doesn't have any relevance, just a hallucination, imagination in your mind and intellect, which is not going to be of much utility to you. So just take advantage of what you can perceive here and now and deepen that. And as you keep deepening it, you perceive even more right here and now. Food plays a big role in starting off that journey, but food is not just what you munch upon, it's far more than that. Okay, so this will end today's spiritual FAQ as well. Namaskaram. Jai Hind.